Now that the rifle is more or less complete, I thought I'd go over some of the modifications that I didn't show, as well as answer a few questions that keep popping up. The most common question, I believe, is the accuracy of the rifle. I mentioned in the second group that it gets about a 4-inch grouping at 100 yards. This is a 100-yard group. As you can see, about a 4-inch extreme spread of the 5 shots. This is a 4-shot group. I'm not sure where the 5th shot went, but that's also about a 4-inch extreme spread. The other question that keeps getting asked is what is the total cost of the project? And to be quite honest, I hadn't kept track, but I went back and checked. The rifle itself was bought used, about $400 out the door. That'll change depending on where you are and the condition of the rifle you find. The new parts, the parts that I had to buy specifically for the project, the handguard, the front sight, the folding stock, those all ran about $300 new. The old parts that I had left over from other projects, like the tech sight is the most expensive part other than the rifle itself, ran $200 total. The tech sight itself, $125 well spent, I might add. So the grand total is about $900 plus shipping costs for the various parts. One thing you may have noticed is that the folding stock folds to the left of the receiver rather than the right side, as in a standard Galil. The reason for that is because the folding stock that I've chosen, the Ace stock, would interfere with the travel of the bolt carrier. Now, there are a couple ways around this that I've thought of, including an angled spacer block between the receiver block and the folding mechanism. That might give just enough clearance for the bolt handle to move back and forth. Another option is to get a Galil-style bolt handle installed. However, that would cost over $100. Not something I'm willing to spend the money on at the moment. Sale pages for the Ram Technologies magazine catch list that it needs some gunsmithing or some minor fitting to install. And in truth, I found it needed quite a bit of grinding, not just on the edge that interacts with the magazine locking tab, but also on the underside here, where it interferes with the trigger guard. This is something to look out for if you're going to go with the Ram Technologies mag release on whatever kind of AK rifle you use. When I replaced the factory front sight with the Ace clamp-on gas block front sight, it required the reuse of what I believe is called the front sight pin, as well as the front sight post from the rifle itself. I replaced the factory front sight post with a KNS .052-inch front sight post replacement. The reason I did that was because now that the front sight is closer to the rear of the rifle, the factory front sight post was far too broad, subtending about, I'd say, 16 inches at 100 yards. This one is far closer to about 10 to 12 inches at 100 yards, which is just about right for an AK. You've probably noticed that there are a couple different metal finishes on the steel of this rifle, going from the satin bluing of the barreled receiver to the phosphate coating of the tech sight and the trigger guard. I've sort of wanted to have the entire thing phosphated and then coated with some sort of spray-on finish or epoxy finish. And that would just add extra cost to the project, and I think the money might be better spent on a charging handle. But once again, that's not really something that I'm looking to do at the moment. It's just a concern that might come up later on. One other modification I've made is actually underneath the handguard, where I've inserted a aluminum heat shield made out of some common material. One thing to look out for when you're cutting this is the sharp edges. I tried to make as many foldovers as I can to reduce them. You'll also want to be sure that the can you use fits between the holes on your stock. As you can see, a 12-ounce can is too short, but this, I believe, was a 23-ounce can, and that seems to be just right. It's held in place by the cross-stock bolts that I have, and so far it's worked very well in terms of not transmitting any radiated heat. And as you can probably see, the scope mount we put on earlier is still holding its place very well. The fact that it's back here closer toward the receiver means there's less chance for it to move around. I could have, I presume, have just left the entire tri-rail intact and moved it toward the gas block. However, I put it back here where it'd be more stable. And that, of course, meant more modification, but in the end, I think that'll be worth it. The sling I'm using on this rifle is a 1-inch wide olive drab canvas sling from Mountain State Supply. It's a good quality sling with nice rugged canvas, and nice solid black steel hardware. It's attached to the front on the gas block loop that came with the Norinco Hunter, and then toward the rear here it's attached with a one-piece sling, swivel, and stud that screws into the 1032 hole on the opposite side of this machine screw. As you'll recall, I left those in there to support the G11 as well as to provide a sling attachment point. It's a good quality sling and it's a good setup for this rifle if you like 2-point slings. I mentioned earlier it cost about $900 to put this rifle together. Now I don't expect to ever recoup $900 if I choose to sell it. That being said, it's been a very fun project for me. It's also been quite a learning experience. I hope it's been fun for you watching and you may have learned a few things as well. Please feel free to leave any comments or questions you might have down below. Also, let me know if this has inspired you to undertake such a project, and let me know how you do with it. I'm very interested to know that. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and be sure to check out my other videos for similar projects to this, as well as other things that may be coming along in the future.